We start on Saturday, January 21st, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. AFC Divisional playoffs. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Kansas City Chiefs. These Jaguars 9-8 or 10-8 now. 4-5 on the road. The Chiefs 14-3, 7-1 at home. Arrowhead Stadium, Kansas City, Missouri. 42 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 8 miles per hour. We'll start with the line history here for this one. This one opened up at Pinnacle with the Jags at plus 10, but that plus 10 was at minus 135. So, quickly moved to 8, minus 104. Now it's 8.5, minus 106. So you got the Chiefs 8.5 point favorites. From a total perspective, it opened up at 51.5. It is now at 52.5 and is juiced to the over. We have 17,033 tickets in. 51% of the tickets and 87% of the cash is on the Jacksonville Jaguars at this point. 51% of the tickets and 94% of the cash is on the under, and yet it's gone up a point. Jaguars coming off the third biggest comeback in playoff history, winning 31-30 at home over the Chargers. They came back from 27-0 down. They've now won 6 straight. They've covered the spread in 5 of those. They put up 31 points despite 5 turnovers and going just 2 for 10 on third down. They became the first team to win a playoff game with a turnover differential of minus 5 or worse. Teams had been 0-19 in that situation. And that's the third time this year that they were trailing by 17 points or more and managed to come back and win. A lot of character on this football team. And we'll start with Trevor Lawrence, 28-47 for 288 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks. He's never lost a game on a Saturday in high school, college, and now in the NFL. The third quarterback in the Super Bowl era to throw 4 interceptions in the first half of a playoff game. Evan Ingram looked very good. Caught 7 passes for 93 yards, touchdown. Christian Kirk caught 8 for 78 in the touchdown. Zay Jones caught 8 for 74. Etienne ran 20 times for 109 yards. Caught a pass for 12 yards. The Jaguars are 8th in the NFL, averaging 4.8 yards per carry, and that's a spot where the Chiefs can be susceptible. The Jaguars were 9th in offensive DVOA during the regular season. The defense was very strong in the second half, holding the Chargers to 3 points on 4 possessions, 3 sacks, 10 quarterback hits. They finished the regular season with the 4th highest pressure rate at 25.1%. Pro Football Focus gave them the 6th highest pass rush grade. And it's Josh Allen, Arden Key, and Trayvon Walker are really strong. And then they have second-year cornerback Tyson Campbell, who has become a shutdown DB. Since week 14, he's allowed 74 receiving yards on 22 targets in his direction. Over the last 3 games, they're holding teams to only 4.4 yards per play. That's the 3rd best number in the NFL over that stretch. Those are your Jacksonville Jaguars. The Chiefs come in fresh off the bye week that comes with being the number 1 seed in the AFC. Back in week 10, these teams played. Kansas City closed as 9.5 point favorites, and they won 27-17. The Jags had a +3 turnover margin and still lost the game by double digits. Trevor Lawrence was sacked a season high 5 times in that game. And it was Chris Jones. He accounted for 50% of Kansas City's pressures in week 10. He had 2 of his sacks. And Brandon Scherf didn't have any answer at all. He allowed 3 pressures on 2 sacks. And now with Jawan Taylor out, Walker Little starts at left tackle. And that's a big problem. Walker Little, 59.9 Pro Football Focus pass block grade is bad. He's been bad since he was drafted. They took a ton of heat for drafting him, and he's just not been good. The Chiefs have 7 different defenders with at least 3.5 sacks. They're 2-11 against the spread in their last 13 games against AFC opponents. But their offense is so dangerous. They lead the league in EPA per play. Patrick Mahomes 4-0 in the divisional round with 9 touchdowns and no picks, 308 yards passing per game. He's special, and he can take over. He threw 63 passes of 20 yards or longer this year and 0 interceptions on them. And that's amazing. Now they have Pacheco, who runs for 4.9 yards per carry. He can run the ball between the hash marks. He can run the ball right at the teeth of the defense. Where are they susceptible? They're 31st in their red zone defense. They allow opponents to score 67.27% of the time. And Spagnuolo made a big move by moving Trent McDuffie into the slot. Throughout the season, it became clear that McDuffie is the team's best cover corner, and he will be on Christian Kirk in this game. Take it away for us, Andy. The Jaguars at 8.5 and this total at 52.5. The floor is yours.
Yeah, as we often find out later in the year, these numbers get awful tight. I have my updated numbers. My line for this game is Kansas City minus 8.3. So I'm
Wow.
pretty much on market with this one. I believe there's a longer tail to Jacksonville. Like, if you really do like Jacksonville, I do think there's probably a case for taking some money line. If we could just, and I know you can do this, it's not how life works, but if you could throw away that first half and just look at how, and it called for it. He had to. Obviously, game state plays a big part in the game. You know, the play calling, the play sequencing, everything about Jacksonville and how they had to play in the second half. But I mean, it didn't look like a guy who hadn't played playoff games before. Like, it looked like a guy who was very confident every time they went down the field. That was a really good offensive output. Like, this total is probably creeping up towards being too high at this point. But the fact that Jacksonville's defense can be susceptible, and you're getting a Kansas City team that's had 2 weeks to prep. You're getting a rested Kansas City team. You're getting an absolute monster if the game state turns to Jacksonville leading. Like I mentioned, Jacksonville from behind created a bunch of offensive opportunities, but I mean, Kansas City from behind is terrifying. You guys remember? I think they were down like 24 to the Texans a couple of years ago. That was they led at halftime in that game. That was just obscene with this. And I know Tyreek's not here. It's a different kind of offense, but Kelsey is, he's matchup proof. We've seen them, get the other receivers, find roles for them. They've used Pacheco nicely. They have a couple of backs they use nicely, and just obviously it's a very smart offense. Both defenses are a little susceptible too. So this total, while I think it's a little high, scares the piss out of me. I know everybody's going to want to use this in teasers. And yeah, the teaser, America's teaser, I don't know. Maybe I should just put it on the board because the whole world's going to play Philly and Buffalo in a teaser. It makes perfect sense. It's a Wong teaser. It's your basic strategy math teaser. The totals are a little high for that, so I'm probably avoiding it as an official play, but I'm pretty nuts on. Maybe I could just, how about just a small bet on, can we do half a unit? Does that work?
No.
I wanted Jacksonville straight up, but I'm certainly not making that a full play.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Like, if I were going to bet this, it would be just Jacksonville straight up. I would not take the points with them.
So we talked about some of the spots
the blowout possibility is there, but if it's close, I like them to win, and I want to get that money.
We talked about some of the spots where the Chiefs are vulnerable, and the 31st red zone defense is the one that kind of jumps out.
Mm-hmm.
Where else do you think that the Chiefs have some vulnerabilities that the Jaguars can take advantage of?
We didn't really discuss this team during the first half of the year as being dangerous because they started out 2-6. And a lot of the discussions in the offseason were just all the additions, how much they spent on Kirk, how much they spent on everything that they added to this offense. And it's a really good roster, all things considered. Like, I think maybe that's where they got, lost in the shuffle a little, because I'm trying to think what Tennessee's record was at that point. I would love to see what the highest number somebody got on Jacksonville to win the division was at that point. It had to be like 20-1 in season at certain points, just how bad they were to start the season. It was a tough scheduled start, and obviously coming into it with a new coach and stuff. But the Marvin Jones Jr. used to be something. Like, that was a scary tandem up in Detroit for a couple of years. That's like the third receiver I'm worried about, honestly. Like, they've got things going with Zay and Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram was important. Like, it's like nothing pop out. There's no Justin Jefferson. There's no Chase. It's not like this scary offense, this one piece that we're going to talk about. But the fact is they added help to the line. They added help to the receiving core. They have some playmakers. ETN is, didn't play during the urban era. I'm going to call it an era, even though it was like 10 games. But the fact is ETN's a very good running back. Like, I don't know if we just forget about his college career because he didn't play as a rookie. Like, this, it's kind of a sum of the parts. I said this about the Minnesota offense. Like, everything except Jefferson, because Drew pushed me on that once. He says, I don't think anyone's good on that team besides Jefferson. I said, nobody is, but the sum of it is all a bunch of above average guys, like Thielen and Irv and Hawkinson. Obviously, Hawkinson's had some big games, but all those guys are good. And the sum of the parts equals something good. And I think that's just kind of what you're getting with this Jacksonville team. There's not somebody you can hone in on and, hey, we're going to try to take away Kelsey, because that's your game plan for Jacksonville, right? You really try to limit Kelsey. I don't think Kansas City has something you can hone in on and try to limit. I guess I would be trying to pressure Trevor Lawrence, especially with the offensive line injury, and I'd be trying to make him make bad decisions because he's still a very young quarterback. But it's not like I'm going to take one of these receivers and be like, yeah, if we shut down Zay Jones, game over. This shit ain't happening. So I think they have a lot of different ways they can attack you, and none of it's terribly flashy. It was just effective. And we saw Doug Peterson I brought this up to somebody. I said, because he won a Super Bowl and he's kind of playing with house money here too, because nobody expected this team to be very good this year yet. Like he seems real calm on the sidelines during that whole comeback. Like he just kind of seemed like, well, we're going to do our best. We're going to try to bring this back. And I mean, he didn't freeze in any big moments. How many times do we shit on coaches for making bad decisions? I mean, we did it in that game with Staley and bye-bye Lombardi. But I mean, we've been very critical of a lot of coaching decisions. I mean, just in the same state. McDaniel at the end of that Miami game just couldn't get plays in on time. They were constantly taking procedural penalties. So, yeah, I don't know if Lawrence has truly gotten the playoff jitters out of his system, which, boy, if playoff jitters are real, Trevor Lawrence had him in the first half because that was atrocious. So if he's gotten that out of the system, this offense is good. I mean, just from an EPA per play, they're top 5 for the season right now for me, especially maybe not as a running team, but as far as a drop back EPA per play, I think I have them 5th or 6th right now. So it's just a sneaky good offense that people didn't talk about during the first half of the year because they weren't as sneaky good at that point.
So what are the main 3 points why you were not making the Jaguars an official spot at +8.5? Is it because it's too close to the line that you have, so you don't feel there's a big enough advantage? Is it because the Chiefs are rested coming in off of the bye week and the Jags had to expend a ton of energy in that comeback victory? What are the key reasons for you not to make the Jaguars +8.5 an official pick right here?
So I do just see it as a bit of an asymmetrical distribution of results. Like if it's a close game, I think I don't think there's a lot of close games that Jacksonville loses. Like if Jacksonville loses, they lose. Like Kansas City romps, we see Trevor Lawrence come out and look poor again. Like at that point, if I wanted a spread pick, if I wanted a close, I'd take like a plus money Jacksonville +3, or some sort of alt line. And that's what I'm saying. I would rather just play Jacksonville straight up. It feels like either Jacksonville wins this game or they lose this game horribly. And it just shows up like, oh man, this is a much tougher challenge against an actual good coach, against a team that's rested. You do, and people are bringing up KC's ATS record. You do pay a premium for Kansas City, but I mean, I looked at some other people's power numbers too, and a lot of people are pretty close to this number as well. And you do have to it doesn't matter if it's Andy Reid or Andy Molitor, you got to give them a little bit of credit for coming off the bye. I mean, just the team in general is rested, ready, and more time to prep for this. Although they did have a little bit of a disadvantage of, in the case of like knowing who you're going to play. Like it was a bit of a toss-up game. It's not like you can say, hey, we're leaning 70-30 Chargers. We'll prep more for the Chargers. They did have to kind of wait for the game to finish up to feel out how they wanted to start prepping and who for. So, but yeah, I just see it as kind of a dual outcome kind of thing. KC by margin or Jacksonville straight up. So cue the Jacksonville loses by 3, I guess.
Yeah, I have interest. I like that idea of I'm gonna wait a little bit. I would like the books to show some sign of concern with all the money coming in on the Jags. I mean, Pinnacle has gone from 8 to 8.5 today, so they are not showing any sign of concern. Bet Online has moved it from 8. It was at 9 yesterday afternoon, so they're showing some sign of concern. I'd like to see that. If I see that, then I will get in on the Jaguars. I think they can keep this game within a touchdown, but no official pick here from either of us. But I'm very interested in the Jaguars, and I don't know. I had the under when these two teams played in week 10. But I also had the Jags, so I lost a little bit of vig on that. I didn't get the
yeah.
I missed that by
And I think I have 2 different tickets on them to win the AFC at like 80-1. So I might be wearing teal colored glasses too, because it would be awful nice if they got this game.
Oh wow, he'd be in a great position.
Yeah, we could definitely take some Bills or Bengals at that point.
So a free $500 bet on the side right now at 52.5. Would you go under or over?
I'd still probably play the under. I think there is room in this under. Like it's still a playoff game. Although my concern is, and some people, I'd like to see the actual stats on this. Some people were saying, we had low scoring this year during the season. Perhaps the NFL was worried about that. Games aren't rigged, refs aren't paid off, but the NFL does give refs directives sometimes. Like, hey, we're emphasizing this rule, call this more. And that plays the other way, because offensive holding was not a thing on Saturday. There was a few games where the offenses were just playing. It was odd though. They weren't calling the pass interference, so it could have helped. I don't know if that would have been just too much for the offenses, but you saw the points. Offenses, we weren't seeing a ton of penalties. Refs were letting them play. So, and maybe for Kansas City, a 10-yard penalty isn't a death sentence anyway. But some of these teams, you get a bad holding call on second down, you're done. That's a punt. So you take away some of that, and scoring just goes up. So I still like the under, but that is sitting in the back of my head. The fact that they called some games a little odd, I thought.
Yeah, I sort of lean to the under as well, but I see it climbing, and I'm curious to see how high it will climb.